Mike, John, and Sarah were all experienced cave explorers. They had been on numerous expeditions together, and had never faced any significant challenges before. They had heard about the Oregon Caves National Monument, a place where people from all over the world came to explore the dark, eerie tunnels that snaked deep into the earth. The three friends were intrigued by the stories of the cave's mystery and the thrill of the unknown, so they decided to pack their bags and set out on an adventure that they thought would be unforgettable. They arrived at the caves early in the morning, eager to get started on their exploration. They were equipped with all the necessary gear and tools, and after a quick briefing, they began their descent into the depths of the cave. The first few hours were uneventful, as they walked through the winding tunnels, taking in the sights and sounds of the cave. The walls were slick with moisture, and the air was cool and damp. They moved deeper into the cave, following the narrow tunnels and listening to the echoes of their footsteps. As they descended further, the darkness became more intense. The only light they had was from their torches, which seemed to fade with each passing minute. They were nervous but excited, knowing that they were on the brink of discovering something remarkable. Suddenly, they heard a rumble, and the ground beneath them gave way. The three friends plummeted into a pit, landing with a jolt that left them disoriented and confused. They lay there, stunned, until they realized that they were stuck. The pit was narrow, and they couldn't move their arms or legs. Panic set in as they realized that they were trapped in the darkness. Their torches had been extinguished in the fall, leaving them in complete darkness. Mike, John, and Sarah tried to call for help, but their phones had no signal. They were alone, in the dark, with no way out. They could hear the sound of dripping water and the occasional rustle of a small animal, but nothing else. They had no idea how long they had been there, but it felt like an eternity. As time passed, their bodies began to ache. They were hungry, thirsty, and desperate for a way out. Mike, the most experienced of the three, tried to stay positive, offering words of encouragement to John and Sarah. But even he knew that their situation was dire. Days turned into weeks, and they began to lose hope. They were running out of food and water, and their bodies were weakening. The noises from the darkness had turned into screams, and they were sure that they were going to die. One day, they heard something different. It was the sound of rescue teams coming. They shouted for help, their voices weak and desperate. Finally, they heard a voice call back to them. It was a rescue team, and they were there to save them. The rescue team worked tirelessly, drilling through the rock to reach the trapped friends. They could hear the sound of machinery whirring as they worked. After hours of effort, the rescue team finally reached them. Mike, John, and Sarah were elated to see their rescuers, but they were also terrified. They had no idea what lay beyond the darkness. As they were lifted out of the pit, they saw something that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. There, in the darkness, they saw the remains of something that had once been human. The sight was horrific, and they couldn't believe what they were seeing. They were shaken and traumatized, and they knew that their experience in the Oregon Caves National Monument would never leave them. The three friends were taken to the hospital, where they were treated for dehydration, malnutrition, and minor injuries. They spent weeks recovering, both physically and emotionally. They would never forget the horrors they had faced in the cave, and they would never be the same. After they were discharged from the hospital, they decided to investigate the remains they had seen in the darkness. They contacted the authorities and provided them with the location of the pit where they had been trapped. A team of forensic experts was sent to the cave, and they found the remains of several people who had gone missing over the years. The bodies had been there for a long time, and it was clear that they had been trapped in the same way that Mike, John, and Sarah had. The friends were horrified to learn that they had been so close to danger the entire time they were in the cave. They felt lucky to have survived, but they couldn't shake the feeling that they had narrowly escaped death. Mike, John, and Sarah decided to leave cave exploring behind them. They couldn't bear the thought of going through another experience like the one they had in the Oregon Caves National Monument. They decided to focus on other things, to live their lives without the constant fear that they would never escape the darkness again. Years passed, and they moved on with their lives. But they could never forget the horror story that had taken place in the Oregon Caves National Monument. They knew that they had been lucky to survive, and they felt a deep sense of gratitude for the rescue team that had saved them. The experience had taught them a valuable lesson about the dangers of cave exploring. They knew that the darkness could be all-consuming, and that it could trap them in ways they could never imagine. They knew that they would never forget the horrors they had faced, and they hoped that no one else would have to face them either. In the end, they realized that their adventure had gone terribly wrong. They had gone into the cave with the expectation of discovering something remarkable, but instead, they had found something terrifying. They had been stuck in the darkness, forced to confront their deepest fears, and they had emerged from the experience changed forever. The three friends had learned a lesson the hard way, but they knew that it was one that they would never forget. They knew that the darkness could be all-consuming, but they also knew that there was always hope. They had survived, and they knew that they would never take their lives for granted again.